Not the Footy Show.
You know, we've been hanging in there by the skin of our teeth for the last 8 weeks, and I'm very proud of them. You know, we've got to be humble in victory and defeat, and tonight they were too good for us. They blew us off the park early in that first 20 minutes, and we couldn't recover. So all the credit to them tonight, and we were just outdone tonight.
We've been shuffling the decks a lot over the last sort of 8 weeks, guys in, guys out, shuffling combinations and no consistency at training with guys in and out, but it's no excuses this time. You know who you are, you know how you want to play, and you know defence for semi-finals, the defence is just not good enough, so I won't be finishing this year feeling happy. I just want to get on to next year and improve it.
Yeah, pretty buggered at the moment. That was a tough game. We knew we had to chuck everything at the Sharks today. But you know, we're through to another prelim. We understand what it takes to win it, and also know how it feels when you lose it. So we've got to make sure we get everything right this week and do our best shot next week.
Thanks, Parra fans, for coming out. What a turnout. I'm a sellout. Thanks for coming supporting us. One more game and let's go. Thank you.
You can just see around the stadium, the fans are loving it, they're fanatics, and it's been a long time coming, and we're a tight-knit group, and we've been working so hard for this, but yeah, the job's still going. We've still got a couple more games to go.
G'day everybody, welcome to episode 258 of Not the Footy Show. I'm Warrick, Nicolson. I've got Robb Cox on the line again in transit. I think we should change this name of this podcast from Not the Footy Show to Is Robb in Transit? I think that would be a much more apt way of doing things because, mate, speaking of teams in transit, Canberra headed back to Canberra because I'm gone.
Yes. Yep. Ta-da. See you, Canberra. And you'll be happy to know that I picked absolutely zero from 2 again this weekend. So what do I know?
How many have you got from all 6 games that have been played so far? What's your record?
1.
Oh, you can turn off Not the Footy Show now because hashtag analysis. It's about to get really bad. Semi-finals have been done. Parramatta have sent Canberra crashing to a week 2 reality check with a 40 points to 4 win on Friday night. So glad I was there. And then on Saturday night, South Sydney did the same to Cronulla, making Gus's prophecy of out in the straight sets true, with the Bunnies winning 38 points to 12. Both games, yeah, the scoreline pretty much reflected them, I thought, Coxman.
Yeah, look, I mean, in my defence, just very quickly, often when I tip, I tip the teams I want to win. So yes. You can imagine my mood lately. But no, I mean, let's talk about this week. Canberra just didn't come out of the shed for mine. They really just didn't. Parramatta kept getting second phase plays on them, and Canberra couldn't tie that down. And really their defence probably let them down. They probably played their grand final last week, to coin a phrase, mate, because
they've been playing grand finals for weeks. That was, I think, where they got themselves in that problem. And Jack,
they were a much different team this week than last week. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Look, we said it on the pod last week, and I'm not going to go back and get the audio because it's just too painful. But if Parramatta started well, we were gone. And the very first attacking play that Parramatta put on in that semi-final, they scored. They went straight through Sebastian, Chris, and Jordan Rapana, and it was over pretty much from that point. The next set inside our 20, it went through poor old Savage's legs, and they scored again. I mean, when Tom Opacek's beaten you, you know you're going well. And at 12-0, it was over. 16-0, it was over. I know we got a great try through Xavier Savage, which if that had been in a winning game, people would be talking about a try for a long time. But the fact is, Canberra were gone at halftime, and we had a little burst after halftime that sort of said, hey, we're still here and having a crack. But Parramatta, mate, when they get going, they are a weapon of a side. Those forwards were just tremendous in the middle.
They're all very much like someone wrote this week, or maybe I dreamt it, but teams often reflect their halfback, right? And if they're a dominant halfback. Now, Parramatta are just like Mitchell Moses. When he's going well, he's flying.
Yep.
When he's not, he's dog doo-doo. He's ordinary. Sometimes you'd look at him and go, how did you make first grade? You know? But that's what you get with Mitchell Moses. And he's definitely improved over the years. But that's the team. That's Parramatta. It depends which Parramatta turns up. You get the shaky, not too sure, should we be here? Are we imposter syndrome Parramatta?
Yep.
Or do you get the big dog in the house Parramatta? And, this last weekend against Canberra, we got the big dogs. They, they strutted around. They beat Canberra up a bit, and then they started to cut through it. Like a hot knife through butter. They just they owned Canberra last week. There was Canberra just again ran out of gas, mate. They played too many grand finals for too many weeks in a row, and just didn't have much left to give. But mate, hats off to them, because around this year at round 10 or 12 marker,
at round 8, they'd won 2 games.
Yeah, I didn't have them even near the 8. I had them probably around about 13 to 14. So they definitely shone better than what their early season showed them. What we thought they were going to be anyway, but they did well.
Off the back of Papali, Sean Lane, Madison, Junior Paulo was superb. I actually thought Campbell Gillard wasn't as big a factor as I thought he might have been in a game like that. But Brown and Moses just had all the time in the world to do whatever they wanted to. They were jumping off that second phase play. And Canberra, who had shown so much in that first 8 minutes against Melbourne, they just couldn't replicate it. And there's a few things that I don't like about what we did. I don't understand the whole Zach Wolford obsession that Ricky Stewart's got. It's been 3 years, and I'm just convinced that Ricky Stewart doesn't rate Tom Starling enough, and just doesn't think he's an 80-minute player. He's not a guy who you can get behind, because Josh Hodgson's missed 2 of those seasons, and the one season where Starling had pretty much run of things, we made a prelim final. And even in that prelim final, he didn't play him for the first 40 minutes. Like, there's something going on there that I don't understand. He came on after 16-0, game was done. And we really missed Adam Elliott in the middle. And as much as we missed him, we missed the fact that CHN came on for Whitehead for a HIA, and in like the second tackle he tried to make, he went off as well, and he was gone from the rotation. And that stuffed us in the middle, because Corey Horsburgh shouldn't have to play 65 minutes for the first time all year straight at lock. It also took him out of that rotation in the middle that had been so successful for us. And I know I'm on this with the Papali stuff the last few years, and I'm going to say it again. Ricky Stewart's handling of Joe Tapine in that game was horrendous. He played the first.
Are you beating up on Ricky?
Oh, Ricky, you're so fine. You're so fine. Hey, Ricky.
Last week you were stargazing at Ricky. This week you're belting him.
No, he's the best coach for us. I've told you that a million times. But Joe Tapine plays the first 30 minutes. And it wasn't a great situation we're in, but he didn't get on again until the 58th. And we were down 22-4 in a middle period there, just half time. What's the point in saving him for the last 20 minutes? What's the point? I don't know. There's no reason that he comes on at the end of the match if you haven't brought him on for the first 20 of the second half. That makes no sense. Especially when you're burning Horsburgh to like he's candled at the end. Like, he tried his guts out, Horsburgh, but Tapine's the one that needed to play 65 straight. There's no next week. Anyway, it was questionable. It didn't make the difference in the game, obviously, but who knows what happens if Tapine's on at the start of the second half. 18 points is still 23 tries. But all credit to Parramatta, and I wanted to go on this tangent, which is, I got a mate, love you, Mickey, but he loves Parra. So does Dan Palmer, so does Dan Ward from that same WhatsApp group. But he's just going, why can't it be Parramatta's year this year? I mean, I'm not going to get carried away, but why can't it be their year? And I'm like, because it hasn't been the year for a long, long time. And he tried to push the angle that the pressure's on Penrith. And I sent you, effectively, I sent this WhatsApp group, which is just 4 little dot points. It says Penrith 2021, North Queensland 2015, South Sydney 2014, and Parramatta 1986. There is only one team in the competition left that is under an avalanche of pressure to win the grand final, just to make the grand final. That is Parramatta. Cocksmith, do you agree?
Yeah, I do, and I think the longer that Brad Arthur is there, the pressure's on him as well. If he was a new coach to the club this year, then I don't think there's much pressure. But with time comes expectation, and if you're not exceeding what you did last year or the year before, then the pressure comes. So look, they've already exceeded what they did last year.
Yep.
But the pressure's on. If Parramatta fans aren't going to be happy with a preliminary final loss. They want to get to the grand final, and then if they get to the grand final, who's to say they can't win a grand final?
Correct.
And that's what they're saying. So, yeah, I think the pressure is on Parramatta just because it's been so long. 1986 is a long time. I mean, I don't think there's anyone playing in their team that would maybe there is, but is there anyone playing in their team that was born in 86?
No, they're 36 if they're.
Okay, so the
86.
oldest player would be who?
Oh.
Whoever it is. He's only got 30, 32, something like that. So, none of the players that are playing were born.
Mm-hmm. And they're not even old enough. They're not even old enough, Cocksmith, to have been in that period post the success. Like they're even if they're 1990s, for example. So what's that? That's even 30 if you're 1990. So they only got back onto their feet sort of late 90s, really. And then you went through the 2001 side, the 2005 side. Then you had the run of 2009, which no one really expected. Like they're not. This is a funny thing about this new generation thing is they're not carrying the same knowledge that the supporters are. But that doesn't mean that the pressure is not going to be on them. And this isn't a bad pressure's. I don't think pressure's a bad thing in Parramatta's case. Like the relief and the joy and everything that'll happen to them if they win, it's going to be worth that pressure. It's going to be worth that disappointment. I guarantee you, Parramatta fans, you will be stoked. So don't run away from other teams have got pressure on them. No, they don't. It's on you. Embrace it. Enjoy the week and see what happens. I think I've just lost Cox.
Yeah, I mean,
you back?
Yeah,
He's back.
I think. Yep. Yeah, I think they they've just got to enjoy it, mate, because nothing that a fan can do can change it. Wanting something like there's no tomorrow doesn't change anything. So you get stressed over nothing. But look, when there's 4 teams left, there's obviously a lot more chance than at the beginning of the year of making a grand final to start with, and that's the first step here. Let's not put the cart before the horse.
Exactly.
Because if Parra make the grand final, they're either going to play South, or which they would hope, I would suggest,
or
Penrith, which they probably don't really want because Penrith spanked them last time they played, and it really did. And they'll be at. You would think they would probably be near full strength when they play the grand final, unless the untoward happens. But look, I think they've just got to concentrate on this week, because if you don't, you're going to go up to North Queensland. You're going to play in up to 30, 32 degree weather, and North Queensland have a very good record at home, especially in the hot weather, and they'll do to you what Penrith could do to you the next week, or South, whatever it might be. So 1 week at a time. Let's not get too excited by saying by coming out and huffing and puffing and there's no pressure to win the grand final. What are you talking about winning one when you haven't even made one yet?
Boom. Love you, Mickey.
You got to make it, Mickey.
So 40-4 as a Canberra fan sitting there amongst a lot of Canberra fans. I had a discussion next to the kebab shop beforehand with a Parramatta fan, and they were like, "Where are you Canberra fans coming from?" I was going, "Look at the ages. They're all sort of 40 or 50. They were all sort of emerging fans when Canberra were really good. So there's a lot of those in Sydney, and that was evident in the 2019 grand final, let alone there at CommBank, which is a fantastic stadium and it's full. Wow, that was good.
Yep.
I had no qualms with the game being played there, but I think Gus said it on the telecast on Sunday. Just play every game at Allianz now in the second week onwards. Just play them all there. It's just a great stadium, and I can't wait to get there, but I got to wait for next year. That's what Canberra have got to do as well. So Parramatta, they'll go up to North Queensland to play in a prelim final, which hopefully is sold out already. I can't imagine any North Queensland fans are leaving any tickets to the Parramatta fans if they can help it. The other game, Cocksmith, I was pretty adamant that I didn't think Nico Hines could do it all on his own. I thought South would have too many weapons, but they only really needed one weapon in the end, and that was Cam Murray, 38 points to 12. How good was Cam Murray on Saturday night?
Yeah, he was very good. Straight up and down through the middle, and that's what he does, and he's very good at it. And for a bloke that isn't huge, he's just got great leg speed, and he's tough, and he's only Achilles' heel is that he can be sparked out.
Yeah.
And if you're playing against him, you'd really want to test him in the first 10 or 15 of any game. You'd really want to test him and get your middle forwards to pressure him with some big defence. But once he gets through that, he's a very, very good player, and he does that. I noticed lately he's kind of doing more of that Isaiah Yeo thing, where he's playing as a bit of a first receiver.
Oh, he's been doing that for the last 2 years. This year, he's really lifted it up a notch because Reynolds hasn't been there. Because Reynolds not there, so you lose that natural halfback. And he's touching the ball more than anybody at the moment, apart from Damien Cook. It's just a joy to watch. And as you said, the whole spark thing, like he was senseless 2 weeks ago, and the last 2 weeks he played back-to-back great games. I mean, just a joy to watch that bloke. And I thought Cook and Totola were really good in support of him. Lachlan Ilias, mate, that's 2 really strong semi-final games in a row. And I'm going to say it, Cody Walker and Latrell Mitchell aren't fully on song yet in attack.
No,
they're not.
No.
And South,
which is a scary proposition.
38 points on Cronulla. It's huge. And the try that ended it was the Cam Murray one when he walked straight through Dale Finucane, who's going to be having nightmares about that for 6 months until next year. That was just unbelievably soft. I mean, we played the audio at the start of the episode about Fitzgibbon just being bemused by the fact that Cronulla have let in 32 and 38 points in back-to-back semis, and they're the third best defensive side for the year. I know they got a try just after half-time, and they probably should have got another one if Jesse Ramian wasn't a space cadet and been offside on that kick. But that's the risk you run with a Jesse Ramian. He can either be brilliant or he can be costly, and I actually find that the balance goes in one direction generally with him. We were talking about Hines and what he could do to make it all happen. He played well, but where was Will Kennedy? Where was Matt Moylan? They were worse than they were last week.
Matt Moylan was good in the first half. He did some good things in the first half, but unfortunately, mate, Cronulla just didn't even look like scoring. They didn't.
No.
I mean, against run of play, they got a little bit of luck here and there, but when they were running their shape at South on that left edge, South's right defensive edge, they didn't even look like getting through. There was you couldn't even, you didn't even hold your breath for a second. It's just like, this is going to get shut down very quickly. I'm not sure, exactly why or what, if it's personnel or if it's the shape that they're running that South just read so well. But no, they just didn't look like they were, again, maybe it's true what Gus said, it probably is true that they had a very, very easy draw comparably with the other top 8 teams.
Yep.
I think they played top 8 teams 11 times in the season and only won 2 of those games. Stats, mate. You can
love a good
you can
stat.
do what you can. Well, when they don't play each other a fair amount of times, you can get a good draw. And there's another way to get a good draw, and that's to play the top teams during Origin time as well.
Exactly right.
And I think Cronulla had both. It was a double barrel this year. They didn't have to play them too many times, and when they did, it was on or around Origin times. So, maybe all wasn't as shiny as it looked at Cronulla as far as their performances go. But I still think that they looked better than they did for the last couple of years. I think
100%
has made a difference, and he'll continue to. He's a very switched on bloke, and I think he knows what he wants.
I will say this though: they've got a horrendous off-season, pre-season coming up. He's going to run them into the ground on defence.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I hope you enjoyed your nice casual weeks against the inferior opposition the last couple of months, Cronulla, because it's about to get a lot harder. The other player that I thought got really well handled by South was Blake Brayley, who's had a great year. He missed Royce Hunt in that first 20 minutes, which he's been offering to him. They didn't get a lot from their bench. McInnes wasn't as big a factor as he had been. Even Rudolph was contained fairly well. The only time they looked dangerous at all was kicking to the two wingers for South. And that just can't be your game plan if you can't defend. That's the key. If you're defending well, you can live off that. But if you're not stopping tries the other end, you got to find other ways than via the kick. And poor old Nico Hines, he looked gutted after the game. And again, these are one of those things you've got to put in his back pocket. He's got to use it to drive him. He couldn't have played much better than he did this year, to be fair. But at the end of the day, it's not enough if he's the only one that stands up in the big games. And that's semi-final football. I don't care. It's the same as Origin. You get to those games, you've got to find a way to find another gear. If you've got to lift other players, especially, you've got to make them better. Can't just be you trying to do it everything himself. And that's the challenge for any team that gets knocked out at this stage of year.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Nico Hines, I don't think, I'm sure he's got it was his first year as a full-time halfback in first grade. So he will get a lot of experience and a big boost going into next year because he was arguably their best player of the year, I think he was the best player this year.
He's the Dally M winner. He'll win the Dally M. You
think he will? Okay.
Yep.
Well, going forward, this year will probably be even though disappointing as it is now, look back going forward as Nico's breakout year and because he played most of his games with Melbourne off the bench, but now he's seemingly found his position.
Yeah, bench or fullback was where he played at Melbourne because Pappenhausen was out.
Yeah, that's right. I'm still. I said this before. I'm still not sure he's a pure 7. I think he's a 6. I think he's a very good 6. And if he had another 7 in that team, a good 7, they'd be almost unstoppable. But that all depends on how their forwards are rolling, as we've spoken about quite often on the Footy Show. Your forwards have to lay that platform, and that's exactly what going back to the other game. That's what Parramatta did to Canberra.
Mm-hmm.
They laid the platform and gave Mitchell Moses the space and the confidence to play his game and to get his kicks in and whatnot. When your forwards keep getting stopped on the ad line and you're not going anywhere, it's a hard night. And that was a little bit for Nico the other night. His forwards really didn't, turn up and do the business, and as well as they have. And Cronulla 2 weeks in a row. Bada bing, bada boom. Catch you later. See you.
You talk about forwards. South Sydney. They didn't have Tom Burgess for this game. I think he's out again next week against Penrith.
And 2 weeks to me.
And Sevilla Havili, who's their main dude off the bench now, did his calf in his first stint. They're going to have Havili and they're not going to have Burgess against Penrith. As great as they have been for 2 straight weeks, the forward pack for South, that's half your rotation gone. It's just completely gone.
Yeah.
And I just don't know how they fill it. Cheekham did a pretty good job the other night. This is where carrying a Cody Nicarima makes it hard on the bench, is that do you have to play another middle, a Davey Moali or someone like that, to try and, make up the sum of, rather than 2 players, you have to use 3 forwards to try and fill that rotation. That's the big challenge for Demetrio going into this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a big loss. It's a really big loss, Burgess especially. But Havili's been doing a fine job off the bench for them. I think he's probably going to have to bring another forward into that mix, mate, and maybe sacrifice his halfback off the bench. I know that Damien Cook gets a little bit tired these days, so it's good to have. And if what's his name, Ilias gets the wobble on at any time, he can take over as well. But you got to look at it week by week and say this could be our last game of the year. Do we want it to be our last game of the year, or do we want to play again next week? And you're going to get Burgess back the following week, so you've got to play for this week.
Yeah, so there's a lot on the shoulders of Totola and Nichols this week, especially to support the Cook and Murray show that's been going on. They're both their edge guys. JRR, he could end up going into the middle, but he's been doing such a good job on the edge. I don't think you can risk that. He's been phenomenal for him, really, the last second half of the year since he got back into that Origin side. And it's a lot to like about South. They do the business, as I said. Walker and Mitchell, both good without being, fully great in that game. So they've got maybe another level to go to next week. So this prelim finals, Cocksmith, we've got Friday night, North Queensland, Parramatta in Townsville, and then Penrith South at Stadium Australia on Saturday night. Surely this is a 70K crowd, surely.
Oh, you'd have to think so, mate. I mean, I don't know 70. I think it's going to be high 50s, which is a nice payday for the NRL, to be honest. High 50s at a prelim final. But it's a game that people want to see. It's the grand final rematch from last year.
Yep.
Souths have got a little bit of beef with Penrith for a couple of things. Obviously, they didn't like it beat in the final. They probably didn't like getting their noses rubbed into it a little bit with what Kickout did. Online, and he was only being cheeky.
But if you can't do it after you win, when can you do it?
Yeah,
that's the way you're built. Like if you want to do it, then that's when you do it.
It wasn't as blatant as what Alfie did many years ago. When he made up.
St. George can't play. Still can't find
made up a little
audio of that anywhere. It's one of the great moments in rugby league. That. Yeah. 70K, look, man, it's got to happen because what are they waiting for? If you're a Parramatta fan or you're a South fan, this is as big as it gets beyond, other than a grand final. It's a Saturday.
Again, it could be this week, and that's it. You won't see your team again for another 6 months.
Get out there.
If I was a supporter of either of those teams, I would.
Yeah, 100%. And I asked this question in another forum. Right now, Cocksmith, your levels of who you're going for to win the comp. Okay, at number 4 for me, you know the answer.
Go on, Cowboys.
It's Parramatta. I want Parramatta to win. Come on.
Parra. Sorry, who you want to win or who you can see win?
So number 1 is who I want to win the comp from the 4 teams left, and the number 4 is who I don't want to win the comp. So number 4 for me is Parramatta with a bullet. I just don't want them to win.
Okay.
Sorry, Parra fans, but that's just how I'm built. I can't be supporting Parramatta. So they're number 4. What about you?
I'm on South.
What, to win the comp or number 4?
My number 4 is South.
Okay, and then number 3?
Parramatta.
Okay, I've got North Queensland in 3rd. I'll happily hope that they win, but I don't think it's their time yet. So they're at 3. Number 2? Cowboys. And number 2, I got Penrith, only because I want to see this dominance underline. I think if you end up with 1 win from 3 grand finals, you sort of fall into that Manly category from the mid-90s where everyone went, oh, they were just the best team, but they only won 1 comp, didn't they? One was like a half comp, and the other one they got knocked out. Yeah, it's like there's an asterisk that goes on you if you make only win 1 of 3. From there,
so you only want Penrith to win 1 of 3?
Well, I want South to win the whole thing because I like their football, but it's more that I think if you're Penrith, and I want them, I would like them to get 2 of 3 just to underline how dominant they've been in this little period. But anyway, we'll see how we go. And number 2 for you was the Cowboys, yeah?
Yeah.
And then number 1, Penrith number 1. Yeah, I've got South Sydney because I want to see Cam Murray lift that trophy because I think he's just such a great player. There are other reasons why I'm not as enthused about South, but they've got 2 weeks to get me on side. The lads, and I don't hate what I saw.
I can't get on side. I'm just not a fan, unfortunately. Yeah. But they're certainly not a team that I hate.
Well, let me put it this way in regards to with Latrell Mitchell and his antics, and you love him or you don't like him, and that's fine. You're happy to be in both camps. But I'm of the view that if they win the comp, he might be a little bit less unsufferable next year. Whereas if they don't win the comp, it's just going to be chip on the shoulder stuff again. And for me, it's like,
but all that does to him,
Latrell.
All that does to him, though, is it creates pressure for him. I just don't know if it's the right way to do things. I mean, look, as we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, I think Latrell is one of the best in the comp, and I'd suggest that you'd almost build a team around him. Keep him there and just keep bringing players in until it really clicks. But I just wonder about this pressure that this bravado. I'm not saying it's fake. I'm just not sure how much of it is real. I wonder if it's the 100% Latrell we're seeing, or if the bravado is a bit of a shield. I'm not sure. I don't know him. I met him So I have no idea. But I don't know if I'd be creating that pressure on myself. Maybe he thinks he needs it to lift.
Well, that's the thing. I see you can see humble Latrell there. You can see it, but it's being sort of pushed aside with the bravado element. I'm like, you can appeal to people being, which could be yourself, which is the humble one. Like, you don't have to go in one direction completely, is what I'm saying. And for me, maybe we'll see that if they win the comp, that the pressure's off his shoulders, and we can see, for the next 5 or 6 years, a bit of more of a relaxed Latrell and maybe even better football than what we've seen. But that's getting ahead of ourselves. Again, South aren't in the grand final. Penrith aren't in the grand final. The Cowboys aren't in the grand final. And Parramatta definitely not in the grand final. So that's the episode recapping the semi-finals, everyone. Number 258. That's been Robb Cox. I've been Warrick Nicolson. We'll be back midway through the week with our predictions for the prelims. But they are pretty tasty, and the NRL's got to be salivating at the prospect of Parramatta versus Penrith or South. I don't think they'll be quite as enthused if it's North Queensland versus either of the other two.
Yeah, I think so, mate. And I mean, the other thing that they're salivating about is they're going to get near full stadiums, 2 of them this weekend, and then a full one next weekend. Jeez, mate, I love the money.
Imagine how much they could have had. Imagine how much money they could have had if they hadn't played at Shark Park in first week.
Yeah, but I guess that's the weird thing about rugby league. We like a bit of tradition and we like a bit of home ground, kind of suburban grounds that only hold 15,000 people kind of action. And they make sense week in, week out. They just don't really make a lot of sense for semi-finals, or qualifying semi-finals.
Well, the good news is we've got 2 weeks of footy to go, and then we've got like a bumper 6 weeks of the World Cup, which everyone's kind of, I think, sleeping on a little bit. That's going to be a great time to be a footy fan, because you've just got over the joys of the end of the season, and then you get a little bit of a month of footy that people are going to really enjoy. So hopefully the World Cup lives up to the weight we've had to endure to get to it. So Cocksmith, that's episode 258. We'll speak to you next time. Take us out, Sunshine.
Catch you later, mate. Happy to see you.
Off the footy show.
Speaking of no return call, Canberra aren't playing this weekend, so who cares about football? It's funny how that changes so quickly. You go from
we can start talking about horse racing now, eh?
Yeah. Get on the ponies.
John, you're not wrong. As you said, anything up to 3 or 4 horses could win it. I hope you're wrong about buying dingoes, John, because if Majestic Prince doesn't bring home the bickies in this one, well, my missus and kids could be singing for their supper tonight.
You've been sleeping over there?
Pepsi.